What kind of train is that? Well, you are looking at the final move of two historic pieces of ex-Boston and Maine equipment. Come along as Boston by Rails and friends chase this train up north, learning about these cars' dormant pasts and exciting futures. It's the crack of dawn and we're off to 3rd Avenue. 3rd Avenue is a road crossing used by Keolis employees to access the Boston Engine Terminal, MBTA's main locomotive facility. It is right near here where the train of the day is parked. So what's the deal with this train? Well, if you've ever taken a train on the MBTA's north side, you've probably seen 3 historic cars sitting under I-93. These cars were moved here in 2003 from the Iron Horse Industrial Park in Billerica, with the goal of them being turned into a space for crews to wait in between trains. Well, that never panned out, and now, 21 years later, the cars are headed back up to Billerica. The motivation behind this move mainly lies in fear. You see, in September of 2022, one of the 2 Bud cars caught fire and was burned to the ground. This made the MBTA realize if they wanted to restore these cars, they needed to get the car out of Boston to somewhere more secure. In Billerica, the Bud RDC will be restored into conference rooms to be put on display in front of the new Keolis Dispatching Center. In addition, the milk car will be headed to Vermont for restoration. And it looks like we've arrived at our destination, so we'll delve into the history of these cars a little more later. Now, my friends and I were under the impression that this train would head north to its final destination about an hour or 2 after being on duty. And given I had something to do at 9:30, this was the goal. Well, we were dead wrong. Soon it was 7:30, and nothing. 8, still nothing. It wasn't until about 8:30 that we found out what was going on. The locomotive which was assigned to this train, GP40MC number 1116, was having issues connecting its brake lines to the derelict 1930 milk car. I went over to the Community College Bridge to scope out the scene from a different angle. From this bridge, we can get a good view of the consist. As I was shooting some B-roll, 1116 began moving. Except, where's the cars? Well, it appears like the crew gave up on trying to get 1116 to work, because this locomotive was sent straight inside to be repaired. Sadly, it was time for me to go. At this point, I was almost sure I would miss this train. I mean, how long could it take for them to get a new locomotive from the BET, the very place where spare locomotives are stored? Well, funny story. The time is 10:50, and I'm back out, and our work extra is just leaving BET. On the way, I found 2 friends, Nate and AJ, to join me on the chase north. Our first spot is Tower A, the assortment of tracks that funnel into North Station. On the pin of this extra is the C1 caboose. C1 is a highly modified ex-Canadian Pacific caboose, used for work service here on the MBTA. This historic caboose sure is cool to see leading an extra like this. Following that was an ex-Amtrak boxcar, currently used on the MBTA's Salt train, which I plan to make a video about in the future. This train is limited to 10 miles an hour up the entire Lowell line, meaning a much easier chase than a normal train. We made our way to our next spot, Tufts Interlocking. As soon as we arrived, we could see the work extra slowly approaching in the distance. Flanked by the Boston skyline and the newly constructed Green Line extension, the work extra continues its slow crawl to Billerica. Now, as we chase to our next location, let's talk about the history of these two cars. First, Boston and Maine RDC-2 6213 was built in 1956. It ran passenger service until the early 1980s when it was put into storage. 1930, the Boston and Maine milk car is of unknown origin to the MBTA. However, it is known that it was built in March of 1958 for the Boston and Maine. This car was cooled by ice and was part of an order that had the last milk cars ever built for the railroad. This milk car ended up being acquired by the MBTA in the 1990s. The car was never used by the MBTA, and by the early 2000s, it was put in storage on the same track as the aforementioned RDCs outside of the Boston Engine Terminal. We arrived at Wedgemere next to find a handful of other railfan friends. Given unexpected traffic jams and long waits at lights, the chase was much harder than anticipated. Luckily, however, I am being guided to each spot by my trusty train chasing experts, Nate and AJ. My focus is on the road, so it is paramount that I have help if I want to see this train safely. And when it comes to chasing, you have no guarantee that you'll make it to your next spot.
Well, I'm the driver and we missed him. Got a whole bunch of rail fans. Now we're off to Anderson-Woburn. I don't know how that happened. Hopping back in. Here we are. Made it to Anderson-Woburn. The crew. We got BO1 here. And we don't know why. But train should be here very soon.
Here we found a tied down CSX B40-8, still sporting its Pan Am blue dip paint. This will create a super neat opportunity of seeing two things that are, quote, no more, right next to each other. At this moment, the work extra is crawling up to the station, awaiting the arrival of Amtrak 685. 685 will hop ahead of the work extra here at Woburn. There is no way the dispatcher would let this slow train in front of a fast and important Amtrak Downeaster. One stop up the line is Wilmington. Here, we made it to the crossing just north of the station. lot of slow and small back roads were what we took after here, so we had to settle with just barely catching them at the rest of the spots.
Get your shots, kids.
Luckily, we finally made it to the final spot, the Pond Street Bridge, located above the switch for the Billerica shops. It almost feels like the entire rail fanning population of Massachusetts made it out for this one.
Nice to see you.
Likewise.
It was bittersweet seeing the Bud RDC and milk car fade into the distance, into a new home. But I am also very excited to see where this restoration process goes. I hope you enjoyed this train-chasing adventure with Boston by Rails and Friends, and I will see you all again soon, out there on the rails.